gluten-free or not gluten-free? That is the question. So you've heard a lot about it. It's been around for years now, decades. People are talking about this, and a lot of people are on board. So am I, because in my patient base, I have seen incredible improvements with systemic health and autoimmune diseases, arthritis, pains, chronic pain, and digestive system problems, and brain fog, and menstrual issues, and so on and so forth. The list is huge now with going gluten-free. I'm just going to touch on a couple of things here on why to try it, and some references as well. The physiology is huge. The impacts are great. It's complicated, but let's just keep it really simple. So gluten is a protein found in certain grains. Wheat, rye, and barley are the major contributors to that. So just look at the list, and you can just go to Google or any search engine and just put in what foods contain gluten. You'll have your list. You stay away from that, and there you go. I've seen tremendous improvements in children with a variety of conditions, but we'll just name ADD and ADHD, autism, learning and behavior problems, learning behavior and concentration problems. One of the things is I just say, go gluten-free. Now I'm going to back up a step. Before I did the gluten-free recommendations, I was recommending a lot of being dairy-free. Nothing from the udder of a cow. Dairy-free. Cow proteins, very irritating to the human digestive tract and the immune system. Okay? The gut, as you're now learning, is a huge part of your immune system. The gut microbiome, which are all those little bugs in there that actually are doing great things for you if the balance is kept in there, and you've got super friendly bacteria, you've got a whole bunch of neutral bacteria, and then you've got some offending pathogens in there as well. And you basically want to keep the peace, and you want a bunch of the friendlies, and then the neutrals are going to be probably a good chunk of the population of your microbiome. And there's going to be some bad guys in there for sure, meaning the ones that you don't want a lot of, but they're going to be kept in check. Problems arise when you lose some of the friendlies and you lose a lot of the neutrals, and then the bad guys are able to really multiply. And that messes up your immune system, and then it can lead to leaky gut and autoimmune diseases, and then you get the scleroderma and the lupus and the fibromyalgia and the rheumatoid arthritis and the Crohn's and the colitis and the thyroid diseases, Hashimoto's hypothyroidism, and so on and so forth, okay? One of the ways that your microbiome in your gut gets disturbed is with gluten proteins, because your immune system looks at that protein and says, I don't like you, you're foreign, put up your dukes, we're going to fight, okay? And that's what this whole immune system modulation fight thing is all about. If you get the leaky gut, then your one-cell layer in your digestive system that protects you from the outside, which we would think inside, from the outside to the inside, your bloodstream, you've got this one-cell layer with tiny little openings to allow foods and nutrients and so forth to go through. If that opens up bigger, then bigger food materials that typically would not get through, then the body says, oh, you're a bigger clump of stuff, I don't like you, again, we're going to fight, and then there's more autoimmune problems that arise from that. One of the causes of this leaky gut can be gluten, proteins, and so on and so forth, okay? All right, so the other reason I like to recommend non-dairy, going with no dairy and going with no gluten, is there's no downside. In other words, you're not missing out on any nutrients that you needed from them. It's not like you need to go take supplements or make sure, gee, I need to go get other foods and so on and so forth. Remember that most of the animals around the planet, after they get weaned, they don't need dairy anymore, their own milk from their own species, they just move on to solid foods. So there's nothing lost there. And then glutens, there's just so many other foods that you can get all these macro and micronutrients. Again, there's nothing lost, so there's no downside, except for the fact that you and your kids and your family might miss foods that you kind of like. But getting into it, just keeping in mind too that these foods are very addictive, particularly gluten-containing foods. Look into that. Here's some references if you want to do a deeper dive into this stuff. First off is Dr. Tom O'Brien. He's got a few good books out here. I'm into the Autoimmune Fix, The Autoimmune Fix by Dr. Tom O'Brien. I'm just finishing up that book right now. That's very good. And You Can Fix Your Brain. That's also by Dr. Tom O'Brien. You Can Fix Your Brain. So you can see he's going to do a dive into removing foods that are inflaming your immune system, and he'll kind of start off by saying, good idea to get off of gluten and dairy proteins. So Dr. Tom O'Brien. Dr. Robert Lustig, I've talked about Dr. Lustig several times. Great book called Fat Chance. His next book, which I've mentioned on here, is The Hacking of the American Mind. Just awesome reads, and he is a pediatric endocrinologist. So his focus is on infant and childhood obesity, and he'll talk about these foods. Of course, sugar, that's the other one that we want to give up as well. But that's Dr. Robert Lustig, just some great books. Dr. David Perlmutter, a medical neurologist, has written several books. I've read almost all of them, and just before the show, I looked up another one. Anyways, he did Grain Brain, great book by Dr. David Perlmutter, Grain Brain. Brain Maker was the newer one that I read, but he's now coming out with, and it might be available right now, Brain Wash. Brain Wash, good for you, Dr. Perlmutter. Great titles to these books. Brain Wash, I think it's available in January of 2020 as we're doing this show right now. I'm sure that book is going to be equally as good as all the others. In Brain Maker, he not only talks about getting away from gluten proteins and dairy proteins and so forth, but he talks a lot about the human microbiome and how to build that up. Remember, he's a medical neurologist, and he's basically talking all about nutrition and supplements. Wonderful. In Brainwash, I think he's getting into the stress reduction sides of things too, from a quick look at it. Dr. Mark Hyman. Dr. Mark Hyman, a fabulous author, great speaker, lots of good books out there. The one that I finished was Eat Fat, Get Thin. Eat Fat, Get Thin. He has another one which I haven't got yet, but it looks very good. What the heck should I cook? That's the name of his book. What the heck should I cook? Great job, because everybody asks me that. And of course, I have newsletters, and I've done 10,000 shows on what to do and so forth, but these people can give you a lot of support. Most of these people I'm talking about actually have recipes and shopping lists and so forth in the back of their books. So another good one. Dr. William Davis, another medical physician. Dr. William Davis did the book Wheat Belly. Wheat Belly. He'll talk about that. He'll talk about how crops have changed, how the genome of wheat has changed, how it's different than it used to be, where in the past, decades ago, it used to be maybe a fine grain to take in limited amounts, but how that's changed and why it's just beating us all up. Dr. Davis, Dr. Perlmutter, I think Dr. Hyman, certainly myself, Dr. Dan Murphy, my colleague, we have talked many times about how people we know have been gluten sensitive, not celiac, but a gluten sensitive person can eat gluten here in the United States and be affected, and it will really mess them up. Travel to Europe, eat gluten over there, eat wheat over there, and they're fine. Right? Isn't that amazing how many times that has happened to people? Okay? The super gluten sensitive people will probably go over there and not do so well. But lots of people that I know and all these doctors that I've said, they themselves have traveled and gone over there. And Dr. Peter Attia, who I mentioned on the show as well, he said the same things. I'm gluten sensitive and sugar sensitive, so forth. I go to Europe, eat whatever I want. I'm good, because they just haven't monkeyed with things as much over there. And our last reference, who I've talked about recently, is Dr. Kelly Brogan. Dr. Kelly Brogan is a holistic psychiatrist, and in her book, Own Yourself. Own Yourself. She has a specific nutrition plan, and you betcha, one of the things in there, she says, go gluten-free. Try it. Try it for your children. I'm Dr. Scott Fuller.